Hi, this is Ed in San Diego, and this is Global TV Talk Show, a news service of globalbusinessnews.net. We're focusing in on Canada and all the pleasures and wonders of living in Canada, the corporate relocation scene, and COVID impacted, of course, and and what's going to happen this fall. So we're all going to look through our crystal ball and see what we can come up with and share ideas. Mirela, you're with Zynga now, and what is the official title of your position?
Well, Ed, hi. Great to see you again. And last time it was in person in Toronto, so at least I have you visually on my screen today. My new title is Senior Manager of Immigration and Relocation at Zynga. The responsibility is global. So Canada, of course, being my home, is my first and primary love, but I do have responsibility over the program, leading the program worldwide for Zynga.
I see. So I know you have an office in San Francisco, Silicon Valley area, so that's obviously part of your group.
It is. Unfortunately, I have not had the opportunity to go out to the office. I look forward to the first opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
A funny story to share. I actually joined Zynga in the middle of a pandemic, which
Oh,
most people are quite surprised to know that an organization like Zynga continued their recruitment effort during that time, which actually meant that there were no in-person interviews at all. I interviewed over a series of a number of Zoom calls, and I have yet to actually set foot in the Toronto office. Although curiosity had me drive by, okay to say that I did a drive by and
yeah.
checked out the building. I did have the unique pleasure of actually seeing a video on YouTube of the Zynga India office, which is absolutely fabulous. So I hope as things kind of open up in the world, I'll have the opportunity to
Yeah.
first go meet my management team and the senior leadership team in San Francisco, and then make my way around the world and see the other studios.
Yeah, so I was watching business TV, I think last night or this morning, I can't remember already. And the CEO was on about the latest acquisition. So I'm sure you're going to have more hands full coming up.
Absolutely. And I mean, a lot's been going on in the short, 2 months that I've been here with the company. The acquisition was definitely a new one, and it's very much a new space for me in this industry. My
Yeah.
background is not at all related to online gaming. And so it's just a lot of learning for me as well, understanding the business, and really thrilled and excited to be part of an acquisition and see where that leads from a mobility perspective.
So now I want to ask you about cross-border communications and understanding cross-cultural. So you have a multicultural team, and most of them are probably young people, but certainly multicultural. How are you finding that? How are you managing that challenge?
I mean, I don't see it as a challenge. I've had global responsibility for many years. And as such, funny story is that when I started working with Asia and that part of the world at some point, I thought it would be very wise for me to go through a cultural training and an orientation, which I did. And I was submersed in learning cultural nuances, and I think that has definitely helped me. Yes, we do source a lot of employees from around the world to join the Zynga family, and so I am corresponding and dealing with people from different places like India, Turkey, Finland, parts of the world that really I had not closely worked with in the past, like Turkey and Finland. So lots of interesting norms and cultural differences that we're all adapting to. But I think sort of the culture of working remote has taken flight, and everybody's doing a fantastic job of managing that in sort of our new environment.
Well, that's fascinating. So are you going to move the work to your global talent rather than reload people?
It's a really good question. But what I would say, Zynga has continued their recruitment efforts. I mean, myself being as an example of somebody during the pandemic, and them continuing that effort, they're continuing to kind of look and source for open positions that we have available. And at the moment, although travel is not permitted, we're still going forward and moving forward and finding the right talent to join the organization. When and how we're going to move them remains to be seen as things sort of unfold globally. At this time, we do continue to work from home, and our plan is to keep our offices shut until the beginning of next year. Obviously, if improvements are noted around the world and offices reopen and travel becomes easy and accessible, then we will actually, pick up on the relocation of those, new talents that we're acquiring in different corners of the world.
Very nice. Thank you. We're going to come right back to you, Mirela. Monica Navascuse. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Navasquez.
Okay, there you go. I need training.
No
So
worries.
tell us about Bradkin. It's a huge company, huh? Mining, agriculture.
Well, we are a global company. We have close to 3,000 employees in countries like Australia, China, India, South America, and the US and Canada for sure. And we're looking to become more and more global. We are basically producers of um, steel castings and pieces for the mining or the resource sector. But we have also some specialized products for other kind of clients that we have, like transportation and agriculture, as you were saying. So we are a very diversified portfolio of products, and we work with our customers at the center of everything that we do, for sure.
Yeah. So do you have much movement in and out of Brazil these days?
Not that much, really, but again, we have clients across the globe, and we are a subsidiary of Hitachi organization. So we have presence with different either sales groups or distribution groups across the globe, and our centers of manufacturing are based. Some of them in America, some of them in China, in India, and other places across the globe, including Australia. But it's like where our clients need our products, right? Wherever we need us. And then we try to hire local talent when possible. In some cases, we have some specialized skills that we need to acquire and move around the globe. But in some cases, when you're dealing with local markets and local clients, it's very good to have local talent as well, that they understand their needs and uh, the cultural nuances and the languages and everything in regards to supporting them, for sure.
Okay, so now we have really the opposite. We're on bipolar here, really, because you're dealing with mostly highly technical construction, engineering kind of people, and of course support people. And Marilla, I would imagine that you're not dealing with any of those kinds of people, that you're dealing with a different demographic. Is that correct?
We are, we're looking at IT skill sets, right? Graphic designers, software engineers, and you're right. I mean, they're very young. They have sort of the world as their oyster, many opportunities for them, and so, attracting them is something that's very competitive at this point. But definitely a much younger demographic, and interestingly enough, they tend to relocate alone, and often don't have sort of the baggage, as I say with all due respect, in terms of a household to move and a family, often enough they're much younger from a demographic perspective, but definitely in that very competitive IT space.
Yeah, I really appreciate your time so late in the day. So before we get to Steve and Frank, so Monica, is there a way that you could gamify some of your job? In other words, do business with Zynga and use their talents to help you communicate better with your new talent?
Of course, and I think part of our common mandate will be to innovate, right? Where we are an old business, having been on the casting industry for sure, but we are looking for more and more ways to innovate, new materials, new ways to have recycle our products and whatnot, and also be able to be there to support the needs of the customers. And also during the manufacturing process is how do we keep our employees safe, and we make innovations with technology that will help us really make these jobs safe for everybody, and be better at producing what we do, right?
Let's go to David Tompkins in the duty of care business, insurance. So, your video is a wow, but we'll show it in about 15 minutes or so. So, David, what do you see now in the COVID environment when it comes to duty of care and insurance service?
It's making sure that you have a global benefits plan that will fully cover COVID-19, both testing and treatment. One that also covers, obviously, pre-existing conditions for expatriate employees, as well as business travel plans that we also offer that fully cover pre-existing conditions as well as COVID-19. And I guess the other thing would be having a global benefit plan that includes free telehealth, because depending on where you are in the world, you could even say that in some parts of the U.S., for example, it may be a little bit more risky to go to the doctor for a rash or something minor. So if you can, use your app or your computer to contact the insurer, and they can have a doctor chat with you online with a video to diagnose or give some directions on maybe your COVID symptoms, maybe something minor. That's definitely a big thing to have and well needed.
Interesting, isn't it? Steve Krein, again, welcome. Really honored to have you involved here. What's your take on the COVID? And of course, it's impacting your organization, but how are you reinventing and reskilling?
Thanks, Ed. It's a pleasure to be here. And hello to my fellow panelists this afternoon. It's always nice to see and speak to people. So what's my take on COVID? I really don't know, because it's shifting every single day, where we think that we might understand what's happening, and yet there's still so much uncertainty and unknown. For our association, we're a small association, as you know. We're based in Canada. Although we're based in Canada, we have a global lens, and that is that we work with many multinational corporations that move their employees. And so, we've seen that grind to a virtual halt. But I will say, and I agree with Monica, that we're constantly looking at ways in which we can reinvent ourselves, and we can somehow reimagine the future. And that's the theme of our conference, which has been
very good.
We've transitioned it to a virtual platform.
No, good. Frank, the tax consequences of working from home, working from anywhere, is it a growing problem, or is it just sort of a nuisance?
Well, tax overall is usually a nuisance to a lot of people, right? Dealing with companies and individuals. And you figure, being in the cross-border realm, people not traveling anymore, a lot of people think, okay, that's one less thing I need to worry about. There's no taxes because I'm not sending anybody anywhere and we're good. But what we've been seeing is a lot of virtual assignments. Whereas in the past, say a company in the US would hire someone in Canada, they would get them to transfer down to the US and they would just live there on assignment. Now, because of the travel restrictions, people are working from home. So, this Canadian employee is working out of their home in Canada. And what that does is it creates now Canadian tax issues for that US company. Whereas before they may have not had any because they had no one or no interaction in Canada. But now having an employee working from home, now gives them a presence in Canada. So that could create, a whole list of tax issues for the company as well as for the individual. So, where we thought the tax issues would kind of not disappear, but kind of get reduced from people not traveling, the flip side's happening where because people are not traveling, it's actually creating tax issues anyway. So So yeah, so taxes are there regardless of what's happening in the world. You can't really avoid them. They just sometimes get flipped in another direction. So,
Frank,
Thank you.
isn't that what we say though? It's the only certainties in life are death and taxes.
yes, that's for sure. So I couldn't handle being a mortician, so I went to tax.
Mark Fielding, this is the first time we've met. And how long have you been with Velocity?
I've actually been with Velocity relatively short while, about a year and a half. I moved over here from London, as you may be able to tell.
Yes, I did distinct that. So what are you doing in the face of COVID?
So our business has actually been impacted in a couple of ways positively. So as some of you on this call know, essentially what we do is outsourced HR. So we act like an Airbnb for corporate infrastructure, maintaining fully operational offices in 186 countries through which we hire our clients' employees on their behalf. Usually the use cases were around market entry, so allowing companies to maintain a light footprint as they move into a new market. Obviously, those expansion initiatives have, to a large extent, been put on hold given current circumstances. But where we've seen a significant pickup are in situations that Mirela actually mentioned. So where companies were going to bring on employees that were intended to move to a country in which they had large-scale HR infrastructure, but were stranded in third countries because of COVID border closures. And with an inability to support those employees via corporate infrastructure that they may have in place in those international jurisdictions, they use us essentially to onboard that employee, to allow them to start to receive a salary and generally start working, because there's no certainty around when they might be able to move to the country in which they'll be working long term.
Mark, you're going to find it interesting that one of the first meetings I was invited to when joining Zynga was to look at Velocity as a solution for some of our challenges of sort of having employees that we've hired, but for the obvious reasons we could not move. And so you guys have actually been instrumental in that solution for us. I believe our contract is now signed, and you are supporting us in some of those countries. So thank you for that. You came to the rescue. Second day on the job. It was my mandate.
So I want to say thank you for mentioning all this. It makes our program that much more powerful. Zaina, being an immigration lawyer at this point in time must be full of challenges. So how are companies getting around it? There's another way of doing it, isn't it?
Well, it absolutely is full of challenges. Our borders have essentially been closed since March. And so immigration right now is accepting applications, but whether or not they're processing is a whole different story. There are some types of applications that could be considered essential. For example, anyone in the medical industry or in IT, like for example, critical infrastructure, engineers. But part of the issue is that, for example, in India, the COVID situation is they're still on lockdown right now. So even if there is someone who's essential or even critical, only the Delhi office is operational right now, and even that is very limited capacity. So a lot of applications are not processing, and not only that, the visa application centers where you have to give your biometrics, those are closed as well. So nobody can go to, particularly in India, they have opened in the States. So a lot of applications are stuck. That said, we are seeing a little bit of movement. So we have, just today we had some movement on some of our applications pending in Mexico. The US ones are starting to move a bit, but it's been, since the end of March, since it's been at quite a standstill. So it's definitely a challenge. I spend my day trying to convince various program managers to look at my applications and consider them to be essential or critical, and please let my people in. And it's tough, but a lot of our companies are now, they're still hiring. They're just virtual until we can actually get them in. So yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the coming months. And, you know, I do hope everything opens up from a business perspective, but at the same time, you know, there's the public safety concern, which we can't ignore as well. So I'm torn.
So what do you think about companies who are reluctant to send people into the U.S., at least as of now? They're very interested in Canada, aren't they?
Yeah. In fact, I spend a lot of my days, aside from fighting with different IRCC officers, I spend a lot of my days on calls with companies who either they already have offices in Canada, maybe a branch subsidiary or affiliate here, and they're just looking to move now all of their foreign nationals who are in the US, they just want to relocate them to Canada. Or they're US companies that, you know, want to start an entity in Canada to just start hiring here. A lot of people are nervous about the US with the visa ban, especially with the H-1Bs. The H-1Bs actually really affect particularly Indian nationals. And I find that there's obviously a lot of tech companies with branches in the 3 different countries, India, US, and Canada. And so a lot of them, I think when things open up, are going to be shifting everyone to Canada.
Yeah. So, Mark, work from anywhere is perfect for your business, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's definitely had its upsides for us, and we're seeing a lot of trends as you know people follow the trailblazers of Twitter and other companies that have decided to indefinitely have remote working options for their employees. Some of the kind of more interesting trends we're seeing is incentives around offering corporate gap years, for example. So allowing your employees to go and work from anywhere they choose in the world and actually funding the trip over and their move over there and to a more or less extent their stay in a third country over 6 months or a year. We're helping companies kind of develop those kind of offerings as well as help them shore up their current employees if they want to work from countries in which their employer doesn't have corporate infrastructure.
I want to introduce our sponsors. Global TV Talk Show is co-sponsored by Porchlight Rental and Destination Services. That's porchlightrental.com. Porchlightrental.com. Also by CubeMonk.com. That's CubeMonk.com. It's an innovation in also good packaging, freight forwarding, wonderful invention. And by the relocation management company, Ayres Relocation. That's AIRES. Ayres.com. Thank you for being a sponsor of Global TV Talk Show.
As an expat moving to the USA, relocating is exciting, but it can also be stressful. Getting a car, truck, or SUV for personal transportation is usually a high priority. That's where International Auto Source comes in. We make getting the vehicle you want for your work assignment or academic program easy, so you're ready to drive when you arrive. Our product specialists have helped over 50,000 expatriates with their personal transportation needs, making us the largest international auto retailer in the world. International Auto Source gives you flexible payment options to buy, lease, or rent a vehicle from the world's leading auto brands, arrange financing on a purchase or lease without a U.S. credit history, social security number, or driving record, get full insurance coverage, and get approved easily through our low-rate factory-backed financing programs. And because we're an authorized distributor of the world's leading automotive brands, our no-haggle prices are competitive, and the buying experience is hassle-free. We'll even guarantee your new vehicle will be ready the day you arrive. With over 20 years of experience in the global community, we are the vehicle experts for expats. We are International Auto Source.
Hello there! Are you going global? If so, it makes sense to obtain insurance that will cover you and your family members globally. Expat Financial is an independent international brokerage that offers international health insurance, expatriate life and disability insurance, as well as travel insurance plans to both individual expatriates and expatriate employers. Expat Financial connects clients around the world with well-known and respected insurance service providers while providing excellent client support and service. Individual expats can also obtain a quote and apply for international health insurance coverage via expatfinancial.com. Expat Financial, a division of TFG Global Insurance Solutions Ltd, can also source special risk coverage for employees working in high-risk countries. Please contact Expat Financial today to discuss your global insurance needs. Remember, Expat Financial is your go-to expatriate insurance specialist. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.
Right. Thank you very much. So, David, that was a wonderful program. And of course, she's really bright and a professional actress. So it makes it interesting to watch and listen to. But with so many people who are younger, basically taking over the workforce in the next 4 or 5 years, video is the way to communicate with these people. And especially when using Zoom or Cisco WebEx or whatever. And so I want to encourage everybody to send me their videos, and it could be 15 seconds, 30 seconds. Prices are inexpensive for the exposure, but it's not a sales pitch. It's a way to show that you understand how to communicate to the new generation. So, David, back to you and insurance. Not a sales pitch or anything, but just are there policies for COVID?
Well, that's the COVID-specific policies that I know of, but certainly we have. We're getting since COVID really got obviously a bit out of control in like March, April. Because we do a lot of individual expat health insurance. We're certainly the biggest in Canada and one of the biggest providers, and one of the bigger providers in the world, because we deal with individual expats as well as expat groups. But we certainly got a lot more traffic on our websites for individual global health plans that cover that don't exclude COVID. So there are some individual plans that exclude the COVID or pandemic related illnesses, but certainly the good ones that we are able to offer do cover it on the individual side, and certainly on the group side, the ones that we offer fully cover COVID related, just like any other illness, which is key.
Yeah. Steve, back to you regarding Mobility Reimagined. Give us a quick overview of the kinds of topics specifically that you're able to describe at this date.
Well, thank you. Well, you've got two of our speakers on the call this afternoon with David and Mirela. Mirela will be joining some of our members to discuss immigration. David Crawford from Fragaman, senior partner there, will be looking at some of the the landscape that's shifting very quickly in the immigration field. Duty of care is one of the topics that David will also be covering, looking at insurance coverages, but also looking at the broader implications around duty of care when it comes to making sure that we're looking after the people that actually pick up and move. And we'll also be we've also got a great session on diversity and inclusion. So as I look at, as well as policy development, so as I look at the challenges that face us in the mobility space, I see those as really the critical opportunities foreign mobility professionals to tackle in going forward. So from the perspective of compliance in areas of tax and immigration, from duty of care, the development of policy, and who we send, that whole strategic decision in terms of the people that we actually move, and leveraging companies such as Mark's in that whole process. And I think we've really got to take a hard look at what moves look like in the future. Will there be a swing back to more of the permanent relocations, or will we see more shorter midterm assignments? The jury's still out on that, Ed. As you asked me at the beginning, what's my take on COVID and the impact on our industry? It's changing almost on a daily basis. But I think the reality is in the discussion is that talent today remains the top currency, and it will be those organizations, it will be those countries that find ways to attract the brightest and the best that will recover from this from this pandemic. I think Canada is in a very good position, where we have a government that understands the benefits of immigration. And I think that we'll continue to see that opening of our programs to entice the brightest and the best to come to our shores, frankly.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that is going to be a great program. I look forward to that. Frank, back to compensation, if you can address some angle of tax. And, before we get into that, though, describe what RSM is these days.
All right, thank you. So just making sure my mic is still on.
Yeah.
So RSM, we're an accounting consulting tax firm. We're the 5th largest firm in the world, just behind the Big Four. In some of the countries that we're in, we actually have a little bit of a bigger presence than the Big Four. What I do is I lead our global employer services group. So we get involved with any company that's looking at sending an employee to work in another country, and we assist them with all the tax issues as a result, from corporate tax down to payroll tax issues, individual tax issues, and we kind of quarterback in regards to any other tax issues that may come up as well. So that's me in a nutshell. So
yeah, so RSM doesn't focus on billion-dollar companies. It's maybe 900 million, right?
Well, we tend to cater to the middle market. But being a big firm that we are, with the resources that we have, as well as the global reach that we have, we're in over 120 different countries. So there isn't a part of the world that we don't have presence there. We're able to help, any sort of company, whether they're small, looking to expand, or even, the big conglomerates that are out there already. So.
Great. Well, I thank you for being involved in that Toronto meeting we did last October 30. And for the intros to your people. I'm grateful, of course. Monica, you're also involved in helping newcomers into Canada, aren't you?
Yes.
I remember our conversation about a year ago when you told me all about this. I was fascinated. Please tell us more about that.
Well, it's been one of my passions. Being an immigrant myself, almost 15 years ago, I came to Canada. And, I was not looking for an opportunity, really. I was following the love of my life, just so you know, guys. I had a wonderful career in different countries in Americas, and I came to Canada not knowing really what to expect. And I had to start over my career. And I was very blessed to have a few people along the way to help me reconnect with my profession and, start restarting my career in Canada. And it's been a wonderful journey. So one of the ways for me to give back is volunteer as a mentor for new Canadians looking for their next career in Canada. And of course, me being on the human resources field, it's perfect for me because, of course, all the coaching on soft skills, interviewing techniques, and whatnot is there. So it's one of my passions to volunteer and give back to my community. I love Canada. Canada is my country, is the country of my kids. I still consider myself a very global citizen, and it's a wonderful opportunity for me to connect with people from around the world in a different way, right? I made friends and connections with people from Moldova, Africa, Congo, like places that you never before think about, and you get to know them personally, and you get to understand that we have more things in common versus differences, right? We might have a different accent, we might have different family realities. Maybe they're single and are married, but we all have dreams and big hopes. And what we have in common coming to Canada is that we embrace that diversity, and we embrace that we are all Canadians at the heart. So, and that's what we love about Canada. And I like that Stephen was saying Canada is in a very good place. I think we are in a very good place because we've been working for many years to really embrace the values of equality, right? Regardless of the place where you come from, regardless of your preferences, regardless of your color. So, and it's a wonderful way, and we should keep working towards facilitating that equality on the workplace, right? It's very challenging for some people coming from a different country like India, for example, with very high degrees, not knowing anybody, to reconnect and find the employment, right? And in some cases, some well-intended people said, "Oh, you have to go and go back on the services industry maybe and work at Tim Hortons." And I say, "Why? You have a Java developer degree. You shouldn't be working at Tim Hortons at all." Right? Of course, the circumstances of each individual will be different, but there are opportunities for them. It's just getting to build their network. Of course, develop a resume that it's aligned with the expectations of the employers in Canada, being able to present themselves the right way, and of course, interviewing skills and whatnot. But basically, the networking is critical, right? They are applying amongst many others that, in competing with many others that have already the so-called Canadian experience. And this person has worked in many great organizations, but outside of Canada. And sometimes because of that reason only, that person will need to shine more to be able to be considered. It's different when we look for talent across the globe, like Mirela is doing already, and you bring these people already with a job offer. But when they're here, they don't really know what to expect. So I work with many great organizations, helping them get to that first job opportunity, right? And it's great.
That's great. Zaina, why don't you tell us about your background and your perspective on all this and what you see happening?
Sure. Well, Monica, it's really nice to hear about the work that you do. I see all the time. I mean, the majority of our business is corporate immigration, but there are often individuals who will come along as well. And it's very hard for them to settle here. It's a different language, it's a different culture. Modes of transport are different, just daily functioning is different. So it's really good, like refreshing to hear that there's somebody like yourself to help them with their settlement. So in terms of my background, so I used to work with some of the bigger immigration firms, and initially I started, let's go even farther back. I initially started my law career, working with or working in sort of the refugee field. And about 10 years ago, I started with some of the bigger corporate immigration firms in Toronto. And I did that for a couple of years, and then opened Marin Law LLP about 8 years ago. So the majority of our practice is helping multinationals to bring in their employees into Canada. We have a really big tech-focused practice, but we also have construction companies, mining, pharmaceuticals, and everything in between. It's an interesting time. I mean, we sort of we dug into that a bit, and it will, to make it even more interesting is, the immigration situation that's happening in the U.S. right now. So like I had mentioned before, there's so many inquiries as to, how do we get our people into Canada? How do we shift? How do we start a business there and, start shifting our talent? Or, we have employees that are on H-1Bs in the US right now, but they're about to run out. So what are we going to do? So I think it's high time to start, start thinking about, even if people have, work permits that are valid for another 6 months, like that's really not that long in the current environment. So it's always important to start thinking about that. I mean, my anticipation is that we're still, like, once the borders open, there's going to be a flood of people coming in. And, we're lucky that Canada welcomes immigrants, and our workforce is really dependent on immigrants because there's such a large majority of immigrants who are entrepreneurs. So, actually creating jobs for permanent residents and citizens of Canada. And then there's always the argument that why would we allow foreign nationals in if we don't have jobs for, our own citizens? But really they help to create jobs, and Canada's underpopulated, and with the baby boomers moving out and, the new generations moving in, we need the immigration. So, I'm happy to, we have this government that's been welcoming, and we have lots of different immigration streams that are welcoming to foreign nationals when it comes to either transferring them from one branch to another in Canada, or even direct hires. There's lots of ways to go about doing things like that. And so my anticipation is that, it may be a little bit quiet in the global mobility industry right now, but I think it's going to pick up very quickly the minute that borders open. So, despite having to do the isolation, like there's a 14-day isolation requirement when anyone comes into Canada. I mean, it seems that everyone's pretty, open and willing to do so, and it doesn't seem to be hindering anyone at all. And so, yeah, I think there's going to be a big flood.
So, Steve, just brainstorming a little bit off the cuff. This is unrehearsed, as you could tell, but it seems to me, I'm just imagining it. I'm looking at your headline there, Mobility Reimagined, that you could broaden your scope, or maybe through a subsidiary action or not, of reaching down into that area, reaching across that area, as Zaina was just talking about, and Monica also alluding to earlier, helping new people come in and get settled. Relocation is not just as we've known it over the last 30 years, but it can be a job shop. It could be a networking event, not just for the Fortune 500 type firms, but for all kinds of people, virtually or in person. So anyway, I'm just putting my 2 cents in.
Well, I think it's, I think that's what our people do. I think that's what our members do. Companies like Zaina's, they do assist and people resettling. It's not always corporate relocation, and also the people that are helping families settle in to the new locations. Monica, I was really thrilled when you were just talking about the work that you're doing in this field. Earlier today, CERC signed off on a partnership agreement with a group called Talent Beyond Boundaries, which is a nonprofit global organization that helps refugees, skilled refugees, in the refugee camps in Lebanon and other locations in the Middle East. And they try to connect them with employers. So CERC has entered into a partnership with Talent Beyond Boundaries to see how we can assist them in developing policies with the federal government for pathways to permanent residency through the expertise of our members, and also in terms of fundraising to assist these families resettle into the communities. These refugees, they come into Canada under the skilled refugee program, receive no money from the federal government. There's no language training for them. There's no resettlement fees. And so they rely upon their dwindling savings and the benevolence of community groups. So we're pleased to be a part of that. So Monica, I think the work that you're doing in that area, and Zaina, the work that you've done with refugees in the past, I think that that's critically important in this whole mosaic of mobility today. So thanks, Ed, for giving me the opportunity to just share that.
Yeah, kudos to you guys. CERC is innovative. That's really cool. So we got around 5 or 6 minutes left before we have to close this. I want to thank you for being my guests and invite you all to come back in another conference like this, or to join other shows. Like, for instance, I know here it's 3 hours earlier from where you guys mostly are, but other than David. But tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, I'm broadcasting a similar kind of program to Tokyo and New York and California. And because in Tokyo, it's, of course, already tomorrow morning there. So it's very interesting. And earlier this week, I did a similar broadcast into Taipei, Taiwan. And last week, we did a broadcast into Cape Town, South Africa. And upcoming is Switzerland and Sweden and Dubai and Tel Aviv and Korea. We've already done Australia. So it's really, really interesting. Also, we have a Brazil show coming up in September. But I welcome people to come back. It doesn't cost anything. And, as I said, I'm always looking for sponsors, but I'm not asking you guys to spend. But I am looking for others to spend. So here's what happens with this program. There's like 15 or so who have watched this one time or another here. But over the next 12 months, this program will be based on our site and with a direct link to our YouTube channel. And it will be part of our network, if you will, TV network, syndication across social media over the next 12 months. So Google Analytics has been following our traffic since 2005. Over 1 million reader page views on our sites. But since COVID hit, mid-March to a couple of weeks ago, Google Analytics says that our page views on our site is up over 400% year over year, which is really like, whoa, now what? So I'm new to this. I didn't do any Zoom whatsoever prior to March 15. And since then, we've done around 30 broadcasts. So we have a very busy August coming up. And we're going to be doing a lot more. So I promise to stay out of your way, Steve. We're not here to compete, but to integrate and augment and just be a resource for idea exchange and bringing people together. One of our slogans, our pet slogans, is enter as stranger, leave as friends. So we work hard to do that. And thank you, Mirela, for taking a chance here. And Mark, nice to meet you. Zaina, nice to meet you. Stephen, thank you for your time here. Frank, thanks again for being a leader. We have a show tomorrow morning. I'm not asking you to do anything with it, just to know about it. It's very unusual for me. I have a friend who's also a client. Dr. Natalie is what I call her. Dr. Natalie Forrest is a psychologist based in Washington. She's been a live speaker, and she's been on our broadcasts like this 3 times already. So she's chairing a talk tomorrow that I'm hosting with a client of hers who's based in Texas, and they have a small company that's techie, and it's geared for small business anywhere. Tech applied to small business in an affordable way. So I don't know anything about it really, but we're going to have a talk show about that tomorrow. So it's really like a new service that we're developing, is finding interesting people, interesting topics that would appeal to our customers and in unique ways. So I thank you very much again for being our guest on Global TV. The show is now concluding. David, thanks for showing that video. I think it's brilliant. And
thanks.
yeah,
Thanks for having me.
I showed it yesterday on a program that we produced very similar to this, that was based on distributed workforce, work from anywhere. And we had a VP global talent with AbbVie, a big pharmaceutical in Chicago, and recently retired head of Total Rewards, and under that was talent mobility for Philip Morris International, and we had some others as well. But we showed your commercial, David, and the others as well. But I showed it to them and took a chance because they're very senior, and I didn't want to offend anybody. So I took a chance and showed it, and actually they loved it. They applauded at the idea of having professionally produced video as not only, of course, it's a pitch, but it's an information exchange, and it's done just right. So I hope you get a chance, David, to show it at Mobility Reimagined, and I'm done being a promoter here today.
Oh, that's very nice.
At least for 3 hours when our Tokyo show begins. So I'm going to go get a drink. So I thank you very much for being here, Mirela, and everybody else. Monica, thank you again. I wish you well. And let's do an update a couple of months from now.
Sounds great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay,
Yes,
thanks.
sounds good.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Appreciate it. Signing off from San Diego.